Okay, well, maybe it looks like we have about 10 minutes left. So why don't we open it up? And we ready for, yeah, Rich.
Hi. Well, Brad, we talked a little bit before, and I just want to reinforce the situation that we have in Colombia, in Bogota, where we have very expensive universities and very cheap schools for people to learn and everything. So I really, really believe there's a huge space for a company like General Assembly to come in.
Thank you.
You have the correct partner and everything, so.
Thank you.
That's why I was laughing. I knew this pitch was coming. So, sorry, yeah, right there.
Thank you for a wonderful speech. My name is Amin. I'm an entrepreneur in Jordan, running a company called Ask for Human Capacity Building. So we're dealing with professional development, especially focusing on trying to bridge the gap between education and the labor market. I agree with everything you said, but stayed with one big question. You know, trying to assess what the labor market needs, especially in a situation where technology is changing every day and progressing. This means a lot of pressure is put on you in updating your content, in doing the piloting you just mentioned, trying to figure out what are the needed skills. And these are high investment, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
You need to stay ahead of any development in technologies. So how are you doing this? And my second part of my question, how focused are you in the content you are developing? I mean, when we're talking about skills, it's a very, it's a huge area. So are you taking, do you have a special focus, or are you trying to cover a wide set of skills? Because then your investment will be huge. Thank you.
Yes. So there are really two ways to answer that question. One is pretty straightforward, which is we raised a pile of venture money, and that's how we afford to do it. So we've raised over 50 million at this point from Mavron, Jeff Bezos, Yuri Milner, IVP, Big West Coast Venture Fund. So we've raised a decent amount of money, and that a lot of that has gone to product development, and we will inevitably raise more. The other, and I think more interesting question is, how do we maintain an agile culture that is always going to be thinking, wow, we need to reinvent this curriculum, wow, we need to teach this new topic that's emerging, and avoid getting kind of ossified and sucked into the same problems that plague larger universities and institutions. And I think that's just really about kind of having the right values and having the right people, and structuring our relationships with our product developers and faculty in such a way that, for instance, we don't have tenure. We don't have the idea that, okay, if you've taught for this many years, you can just hang out and teach forever. And we always want to challenge the boundaries. We always want to stay fresh, and sometimes that means we do stuff that doesn't work as well. So one product we're trying to figure out right now, and we're still in the early days of, is we're teaching sales. So if you look at now what employers are looking for and can't find enough of, it's salespeople. The problem is it's actually really hard to get students to take a sales course, because it feels like a soft skill. It's like they don't really want to do sales all day, even though it's one of the most important and highly in demand skills. So then how do we think about changing the business model and maybe putting some of the cost on the employer to make a program like that work? So we're actively pushing into pretty non-traditional areas for us, and we're taking that investment. But in some of these topic areas, we actually have to change the business model as well, which makes it both tricky and exciting.
Oh, sure. Then we'll come over here. Oh.
Amr from Saudi Arabia. We work with preparing people for the work as workforce, but very early, before college. So we focus on acquisition of needed skills. So in the landscape of whatever is needed in the market, they can be lifelong learners by inherently having essential skills. So very pleased to hear about the importance of a physical space compared to just going all digital. But what I'm still not getting is, so this is basically a training center, right? So you've focused on having good trainers. So you eliminated the tenure but other than that, how is it different than somebody taking a web design course? So I understand it's not a degree. Okay, so that's out. But many people do web design, and many people don't hire good trainers. Is it the cost you offer that at, or is it the roadmap you built for them to how? I mean,
it's a great question, and I actually, you look at it and you say, this is the same thing that trade schools have been doing for a very, very long time. They've just been doing it in a very different way, both in terms of the delivery, but also in terms of the network and the brand. So a lot of why our students come to General Assembly is this idea of the global network of alumni, and that's incredibly important. So I'd love to show you some of the products we have around like our alumni network and our profiles database and things like that, and kind of the way we use technology not to teach, but to actually reinforce all the other stuff around the teaching, especially about job placement and connecting people with our network of employers, and thinking about it a little bit more like a technology company, even if being a technology company doesn't necessarily mean the technology is all over the classroom. It's actually the stuff around the periphery that matters more in a strange way.
I'd like to maybe find time to meet with you, maybe offline, to learn more about that, because I think this is a great differentiators. Get the network to appreciate.
Yeah, it's all about the network.
I mean, the 90% in 90 days, there's some secret sauce going on here. So there's another, sorry, first.
Brad, can you expand a little bit on how you're approaching these credentials for web development issue that you mentioned in your conversation?
Sure, how I'm approaching it in what way?
How are you planning to create this credential that people can?
Right, so at the highest level, it's about what do we need to show an employer that's going to get them to accelerate a candidate kind of past the phone screen. Really, the way that's shaking out is it's much more about challenges and exercises than kind of traditional assessment questions. So no multiple choice, no short answer, none of that stuff. It's really about, hey, build this thing, solve this problem, show your code, and actually being able to go to an employer and say, hey, this person in response to this prompt built this over the course of 45 minutes. That we've seen really resonates with the employer and will get them to pay attention. But on the highest framework level, it's really what's going to get the employer excited and what's going to get them believing in a candidate.
Outside of the first row here,
Brad, can you talk a little bit more about what you're thinking about as you determine the next cities that you're going to open in?
Miami, possibly?
So it's interesting. So we actually have a super secret list of cities that is like where we're going, and we've just for the last 3 years really been working down that list. And here are the key factors we look at. And I actually want to scope this right now to cities in the developed world, English speaking as a first language. And we have different criteria for international stuff, which is kind of I would say emerging market stuff, which is kind of a different conversation. We look at metro area population, density, which is actually super, super important. We look at number of Fortune 500 companies in a metro market because that really determines who's going to be hiring our students. We look at how many basically email addresses we already have geolocated to that market. So what's the organic demand and interest? We look at number of technology and design focused meetup groups in a given area. We look at the prevalence of mass transit is another big one because we like to headquarter General Assemblies and build General Assembly campuses really in central areas. So in New York, we're in the Flatiron District. In San Francisco, we're on Bush and Market in kind of Soma Financial District. In LA, we're in Santa Monica. So we really like to center in the hubs, and transit is incredibly important. So we look at about 30 different factors, but those are some of the big ones.
We've got, I don't know if we can take another one or two.
Maybe one more.
Brad, congratulations, great company. What is your marketing strategy in terms of customer acquisition?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate in that we have an incredibly viral product. And most people don't we're not building a Facebook game here, so most people don't look at what we do and say that's viral, but it's actually incredibly viral. Because if you go to a GA course and you're in it 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 5 days a week, and then you get a great job on the other end, you're gonna tell everybody you know. Your friends are gonna know, your family's gonna know, your coworkers are gonna know, and that creates a huge amount of word of mouth growth and acquisition. So we've been fortunate that we haven't had to go out and do big paid ad campaigns and things like that. When we do marketing, it's mostly partnership marketing. So we will partner with another organization that has a large audience, and they will offer something special for GA, and we'll offer something special for their product or service or whatever it is. So we do a lot of BD and partnerships. So our marketing team at GA is actually pretty much a couple of analytics people and a bunch of BD people. So it's a very strange marketing team, and it's very, very atypical. So thank you guys. I've had a great time here.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Brad,
It's been great.
congratulations on building a business.
Thank you.